right, at least I've got a video.
Hi, Becca.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. My picture is ridiculous. Look at that.
Why?
I just think I look silly in there. All right. So.
Oh, you have like a background, huh?
Yes, I have a background.
That's funny.
Because it's the daylight and it's clearly dark outside. So
yeah, I know. I'm not going to put mine on, I'll say later, just because I hurt my back and I need to be laying down.
Oh.
I know. It's a lot. I mean, I heard it back in April, but I'm just still, I helped save an ocean sunfish today.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. So, but it took a little out of me. So. Oh.
All right. So we have 10 minutes till the meeting. What do we need to know?
Let's see. I'm just going to try and have the agenda handy. So let me see if I can go there.
All right.
Agenda. Okay, so minutes of the last meeting, Zach sent those around.
Yes.
Plastics in the harbor. I think that's going to be Zeno and Ross. And then I have I never sent this around. I've been so busy, I can barely keep up. I don't know what it is. But I never sent an announcement out, like in a crier like I usually do.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Helen did either. But people can certainly go online and look.
Yep.
Right. But anyway, recreational licenses, horseshoe crab letter, I sent that around for everybody.
Yep, I saw that.
The dredging incident, you'll talk a little bit about that, or do you want me to? I can't remember what we said.
You can do that if you want.
Okay.
And we need to set up a time this week to get out there on the tide and look at it again.
It looks like the only time is going to be kind of late in the day on Friday.
Yeah.
Unless, I don't know, what kind of a tide to have the deep end of your grant come out? A negative 2.2, would that work?
The negative 1.1, I think that was the day before, would be good. Isn't the 2 going to be in the dark?
It's a -1 on Friday. Hold on, let me get my phone.
Yeah, my chart's in the other room. I need a clipboard because I'm going to need to take my personal notes. And I don't know where I put my clipboard. Hold on.
Oh, damn it. All right, so Thursday, it's a -0.2 at 2:51. Friday, it's a -1 at 3:46.
Paper. What do I have for paper here? Let's see. Clipboard. Now I need paper.
You look very nice, Becca.
Thanks. Figured it was better than an old ratty t-shirt. Hey, boo. Yeah. Want to come say hi to the screen?
Hi, baby. Oh, is that a black cat?
It is. We have 3 black cats.
Oh, that's
the
cute.
smallest one.
He's so cute. I have a black and white.
All right, boo, let me put you down so I can find some paper. Last time I saw the remote, it was up here.
I got it.
You got it already? Okay. Awesome.
Now what button do I push? Oh, God.
Tom said he'd help, so he could probably keep track of the agenda and stuff.
Okay. See how this goes. 9:20. Okay. 5 minutes.
Oh, there's the TV remote.
That's today, yes.
You said it had fallen underneath the couch?
Yeah.
I was wondering.
Probably not be drinking coffee this late today, but
Sure enough.
Hello, Tom.
Becca, how are you?
hi, it's you, me, and Nancy so far.
Oh, great.
All right.
I was saying to Becca that I did not have a minute to do a crier about Shellfish Advisory, and I don't believe Helen did either. So, although, you know, the board knows about it for sure from both you, Tom, and me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. And I know that the people from the Horseshoe Crab, like Barbara Brennisol, I think she's going to come late.
Yeah, we
And
got
Mark Faraday is
I was going to say, played up here.
their responses. They all sent emails today.
Yeah, I thought something went out. I thought you sent something out when we
No.
posted it, Dance, no?
I did, but just to Shellfish Advisory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it didn't go out to everybody. I'm just kind of running,
Yeah.
trying to tread water here. Just busy concentrating on budget stuff.
Yeah, that time of the year.
Yeah.
The last 2 days have been fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
How are you doing on shipments? How's shipments?
It's
Did
looking
a
good.
lot of people going out?
Yeah. I think we had, I don't know, 85 recs on opening day, plus a ton of commercials. We had more than
Oh.
100 people in there for opening day. So that was really exciting.
Great.
Yeah. It's been busy there. And people still like to go to Indian Neck, you know. It's a nicer bottom on Indian Neck.
Yeah, Indian Next. I know some of my neighbors are going there tomorrow.
Oh, good.
I think it's a bad tide though, isn't it? Like 1+7 or something, 0.7.
Oh, I think today was a 1.7. Tomorrow might be a 1.2. I think. Let me just look. Tuesday, 1.2.
1.2.
Then they get better. They're going to be great
Yeah.
over the weekend. They're going to start going into darkness. So it's too bad.
Yeah.
Yep, just as soon as they get big.
Yeah, I know. It's like on Friday, I want to do the dredging stuff, and I still have 4 grant inspections on Egg Island. So
Yeah.
I might
Yikes.
send Johnny to and then I'll do the grant inspections.
Let me know if my kids are too loud in the background.
Nope, I don't hear them.
Okay.
Hey, Becca, did I get this agenda correct?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that
Okay.
covered everything we were emailing about. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll be happy to do it as we go forward. I know you're busy.
Great. Thank you. Yes, it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
A lot going on here. Not great
You
with
work-
deadlines.
You working moms are fantastic.
Yeah. I like my pretend house background here. This is nice.
I was just about to say, how come it's so bright in your house?
Right? Hmm. Let's see.
All right, I'm going to send a text to everybody, including you two. Even though, you know,
We're all in the group.
yeah, even though I know that
Zach sent the
Everybody-
minutes out.
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, and Zach, I think, was planning on coming. John Dwayne, it's weird he's not on.
Yeah, we told him, he asked the other day what time it was.
Did you guys feel the earthquake?
No.
No.
Oh,
Jude?
good. I don't feel so bad because I didn't either. Sam felt it at work in East Town, but
No, that's great.
we didn't feel anything. Close my door. Hi, Kitty. Perhaps you should.
So I have Zach, John,
Perhaps you should
Jake.
vacate.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. SAB. Oops. So what's a quorum if there's 6 people? A quorum would be 5, 4?
4.
4.
I think it's 4.
Are they sitting in the room, Nance, by any chance?
Oh,
Or where?
shoot. Wait a minute. You're right. Hold on. Let me look. Where's Zoom? Oh, John. Oops. Yes. Thank you so much. Okay. So we have
There we
quorum.
go.
Damn it.
I mean, this your first time doing Zoom meeting?
No, it's not. I'm embarrassed. I just have too many screens open right now, too many windows open.
Yeah.
All right, so it would just be Damien and
Jake.
I see Barbara. I see John. I see Zach.
yep.
All right, we're getting there.
I think you guys have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, I don't mind waiting a few more minutes to see if anyone else comes.
Okay,
we
so
get
it's
started.
Jake and Damien. Oh, here's Damien.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Hey, John.
Hey, I think I'm there. You guys hear me?
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right.
I was muted. We can hear you and see you.
Slow but sure.
Mm.
Damon. Okay. Zach.
all right. Text sent to Jake.
Let's get to my agenda. Mhm. How long shall we give him? Another 2 minutes?
It's just Jake. He's the only one. I just texted him.
Okay.
I think we could begin.
Okay. Oh,
He's the thing that we were going to have him do, I think, was the update on the direct sales.
that's right. So we won't need him till the end at least.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's call it to order at, I've got 6:37.
You know,
Okay.
All right.
so what's new, everybody?
I don't know. All right. I guess we can start with the minutes of last meeting.
So
Yeah.
I had a little bit of feedback for you,
Okay.
Zach.
Okay.
In the boat rag part, it should, the owner was not on board.
Okay.
So the owner was not on board. There was an unpermitted person running the boat, and there was a crew member who had a permit. And they were selling the product under the crew member's permit, which is not tied to the boat, and therefore would not be tied to our dragger landings.
Without licensed owner on board.
Yes, without licensed owner on board.
Okay, I made that correction. Anything else in there?
Hold on, let me just call it up again to see. Right. Right, without licensed owner on board. Okay,
Okay,
yep.
all right, got it. Anything else?
Didn't see anything. I don't have it in front of me.
I can make a motion to approve the minutes as written and as adjusted.
Second that?
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Were Ross and Zeno gonna join, Tom?
Yeah, I talked to Ross, what's today? I talked to Ross last week, Friday, and he said he was going to join. He's not in the room. He's not in the waiting room, is he?
No, no. Now I have that participants window up so I can tell when somebody comes.
On the, slightly an aside, but on that minutes, there was something about the Woods Hole fellow that Nancy, you were gonna get back to them about.
Yeah,
Was there any news about that?
no.
Okay. No news. All right. And so we'll skip the plastics in the harbor for now and move on to recreational licenses. This will be the
Okay.
fastest meeting ever.
So, in Drew's kind of final weeks with us, he's gone now. Drew kind of heads up the oversight of the recreational fishery. And it's been so busy that we've had to jump in now and again to help out. And we're finding that we're going to need to start enforcing the regulations, even in the rec fishery. You know, usually we just, our first encounter is always educational. And most people just don't know. And they're trying hard, but they just don't get it. So, we'll do a lot of, demonstrating how to ring an oyster and explaining why it's important to leave the small oysters there. We say, we understand that might look great on a raw bar plate, especially because, a lot of farmers are allowed to sell petites. And so we're kind of used to seeing that now, but in the wild, it has to be 3 inches, and it's a mass state rule that we're charged with enforcing. So we've kind of come up with a system, which Chris, who's been with the department 20 years, they used to do it, and it's just, it hasn't been done in a while. But because we're encountering so many people with seed, and this year we've had people taking more than their limit. We've had people fishing on the wrong days. I actually had to issue a written warning, like certified mail written warning this year. So it just seems like we need to just be a little bit, have a more concerted effort, and then be very clear beforehand with the recreational shellfishing permit holders, exactly what we're going to do. And I have very good communication with people with the crier. They really enjoy it. And so what we're thinking is that we're just going to go back to what the regulations say, and the enforcement section is section 11. So in 11 point, hold on, 5 penalty fees. The penalties for violation of any of these regulations shall be assigned by the Shellfish Department and shall consist of a fine of $50 for the first offense, $150 for the second, $300 for the third, and in the event of a fourth offense within a period of 5 years, an automatic permit suspension. So I just thought I'd kind of get it out there, and our idea is to basically, for the first offense, continue doing what we're doing, which is an educational discussion. But in addition, we're going to write an S on the permit. And this is what Chris used to do in the past. And then you turn the permit over, you write down the date and what the offense was. So it's a written warning, but it serves so that if I'm out there after Drew leaves and I see somebody with an S on their permit, I know that they've already received the talk
Mhm.
and the written warning. And so then I would be able to go to a confiscation of the entire catch if they have, if they have a full basket, we kind of consider there's about 100 oysters in there. So if they had more than 5 seed, we'd confiscate the catch. And usually what happens is that it's like half of a catch is seed. It's just they don't know, and so by really undertaking a just a uniform way of approaching it, communicating in advance, and then doing it. So we would communicate with everybody, give the educational talk, mark with S, and then after that we would confiscate and they'd get a citation, and we just follow the enforcement regulations that are already in our regs. And I felt like I wanted to create a conversation with you all about it and see if you had any feedback. I know perhaps you don't really encounter Rex or no, but it's always good to have another set of ears on things.
Is there anything online? Is there like a video they can go to YouTube and watch about how to, like, you buy your new license and you get Chris or somebody on a YouTube video saying, this is how you check your oysters and this is what's going on. Is there anything like that yet?
We do not, and it's a great idea. We've talked about it. It hasn't come to fruition, but that's a good idea to do, like measuring a clam.
Yeah, like here's your license, here's your website, go review this.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've done a lot of, Tom and John can tell you that I've done a lot of criers about measuring oysters this
Yes.
year in particular. Oh yeah, you guys get it too, because I copy you when I send it to the recreational shellfishermen.
Just, not everybody wants to read the stuff, but they might watch a video, and we're never going to reach everybody. But
Yep,
yeah.
it's good to have more than one way of one type of media.
Yeah, I think, this is Tom. I think that's a very good idea. Yeah, I was out there a lot this summer, and you'd be shocked at the people that just don't know really what they're doing. They're excited about being out there. They probably have their kids with them, their spouse, and everybody's picking up oysters, dumping them in the pail without even measuring them. You see that a lot. And I think a good video or a good education seminar or something or address it when they first walk in, that, hey, you see this ring? I don't see you have a ring, or you have a ring, you know how to use it, 2-minute scenario, Nance, I think would be extremely helpful for a lot of these folks.
Yeah. So we can create little videos, and we did, through the crier, let people know that we had free rings available. First we had volunteers doing it, then we took it over. But like at every entrance to Indian Neck, there's a little hanger type of thing. And even now, Johnny did it at Shipman's too, with the little PVC 3-inch plastic rings.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
Are you giving those away with licenses? What? When somebody
Yes.
gets, okay.
So they get them when they pick up their permit, but then, we also have them at each of the landings.
So is it fair to say that, did you issue any citations this year?
Just one citation for fishing on the, it was a written warning, only a written
So
warning.
no money, you didn't?
No,
Okay.
I mean, that's not the goal, right? The
Well,
goal is
yeah,
to
and
educate, but-
so I don't think people are gonna get very upset. I mean, at a written warning, if they get it, they get it.
Yeah.
When I first started, I had a spike that a friend of mine gave me to bang them apart from each other. And I just cut a slot in the spike. So there was my 3 inches. I didn't bring a ring with me, and it wasn't exactly perfect. So I always erred on the side of caution, but I could
Yeah.
see somebody doing something stupid like that, and just.
Mhm.
It is. But it's oysters are the problem. People are generally complying with clams. Is that right?
Yes, but the contaminated relay of cohogs this year that we did in Chipman's and on Indian Neck, there was a lot of seed in there, which is wonderful
Oh.
because, it'll be good for next year and the next year.
Mhm.
So, and it's something that we're paying attention to in Chipman's right now. Because it's open now in Chipman's, but the breakwater area at Indian Neck will open on June 1 so that we have a lot of clams for the summer.
Dan, did, whoop,
Somebody's got a bad phone.
Smoke alarm?
Oh yeah, what was
That
that?
happens in my house, but only at 3 in the morning to me.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. I'm just curious if you think that if it did evolve to someone being a habitual offender, is 5 things too 5 attempts at warning them too many? If you just substitute or add a written warning to the whole system? Should we maybe curb out the $300 fine to just straight loss of license if that's going to be the proposed change?
so explain that again. I'm trying to follow you. So if we'll put the S, so that'll be like their written warning.
Yeah,
And then the second time, their second offense, I guess.
$50 would be the fine, and then 100, and then simply just a loss of license, because at that point it's pretty much a habitual offender.
Right. I
Or
don't think we'll
suspension or
get there, but
Yeah.
yes. I'm
A
hoping we
chance to
won't
get $300 for the town, though.
there.
I don't know.
Yeah, so so I want to, well, you know what, we sell permits starting December 1.
Mhm.
But you can't use your 2021 permit until January 1st. So this is something that I'd like to do in December.
Mhm.
And maybe what I'll do is try and work ahead and just try and get a crier out, basically.
Mhm.
That explains it. Not try. I'm going to get a crier out that kind of outlines it and explains it. So Damien, what you were saying is just to jump. So after the written warning, jump right to like a second violation. So $150. And then after that, it's 300. And then after that, it's automatic loss.
No, I think it should be lenient initially and then stiff. I think it should be, first just a verbal warning or a written warning,
Yeah.
and then if it is going to be a fine, then just a reminder fine. But then I think after an attempt, if someone's being habitual, I think it should then be stiff, because it's not, I think it should jump right to stiff. It's not someone whose livelihood depends on it. It's just someone who's blatantly abusing for whatever reason the system,
Right.
I don't know.
This is Barbara. I think you would have to change the regulations to do that.
Okay.
Well, the regulations say $50 for the first offense. And if you're giving somebody a warning
Mhm.
first, that's the S, and then this notation on the back. And so,
Mhm.
I mean, you could just, $50 would be the first offense after the written warning. And then, or you go to 150 for the second offense because the first was a written warning instead of a citation.
Why don't we just keep it the way it is? It doesn't sound like we're getting that many people who are having that big of an issue, and just focus more on making sure everyone has a good education this year and see how they behave.
No, believe me, there's a lot of education.
I'm sure there is.
But this is a way.
I
This
hear
is a
you.
way to track it amongst
Yeah.
the staff
Yes.
and to be,
Mhm.
because like if I run into somebody and I don't know that Drew's already had the conversation,
I'm sorry. That's what I meant. Like, let's not change the fine organization at this point. Let's go with your thing of making sure everyone gets marked when they've been spoken to.
Yeah,
We know where we're going with this.
yeah. So we'd go from written warning, which would be the S, and the
Mhm.
educational conversation. And then if they did it again, they'd get a $50 fine for their
Mhm.
first offense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I'm curious if you're asking to codify that, or you're just thinking that's a policy thing that you'd like to continue.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't need to codify it because it's already in there. But it's just like, we're gonna take a unified, uniform
Mhm.
approach in the department to try and kind of bring the recreational harvesters up a level, you
Mhm.
know, and so, you know, the institution of this S and then the written warning allows us all to know who's had the educational talk and who hasn't,
Mhm.
and then we will be more diligent then about tracking things for
Mhm.
potential citations.
And Nancy, is this over a yearly window, or is this
Yeah.
over a few? Okay,
Yeah, I mean, it would all count. I mean, it starts, and then every year, you know, I guess we'd have to, when we move forward, we'd have to do a little internal tracking.
Mhm.
And I did do that with Drew. When Drew came on, I created a list of the people that I had or that we as a department had had educational conversations with, so that when he hit the ground in May and it became his oversight, he knew who had already had the conversation.
Mhm.
okay.
But then, like in the following year, the citations proceed because the regs say within 5 years, I think,
Mhm.
you can lose your permit.
All right. So you're gonna have to do more paperwork, keeping track of
Fourth
people.
offense within a
more
period of
long.
5 years.
Mhm.
So, it carries forward,
Right.
but the S wouldn't carry forward. We'd have to do some internal work to like
Mhm.
make a list of people, because they're not going to, when you issue a permit, get a brand new permit.
Mhm.
So it's going to create a little bit more paperwork. Who said that? Yes, you're right.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay, well, thank you. If anybody has any other thoughts or comments, all ears.
No, that sounds good.
Sounds good, Nance.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So then horseshoe crab letter.
All right, so I hope that you saw Mark Farady's email, but if not, I could read it. He emailed all of us today. If you'd like me to kind of summarize it, I can.
Yes, please.
Okay, well, let me just back up for a second.
Okay.
Did everybody have a chance to read the letter from DMF?
Yes.
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 Okay. So very disappointing. And, Barbara Brennisel really might be the one to be better able to speak about this. This is something that, had been going on in this harbor for a long time. When I told you that I went back and read through 10 years of Shellfish advisory minutes,
Mhm.
I mean, people worked on this for years trying to get a moratorium on harvest in Wellfleet.
Mhm.
John, Dwayne, and Becca, you were here then,
Yep.
too, and Barbara. So what Mark is saying is that basically, honestly, there's not a lot that we can do right now. The state feels that because of their trawl survey, they're seeing an uptick in numbers, even though they recognize that the trawl survey isn't great as a because I guess the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission did not include the Cape Cod Bay trawl data in their stock assessment because it was so statistically weak. But DMF thinks it's their best available science, and they believe that there's juveniles being recruited. And he says, you know, Audubon seems like it's committed to doing the spawning surveys, and hopefully DMF is right, or we have to figure out how to prove them wrong. I've not been at this very long, but it seemed to me that there were anecdotally quite a few horseshoe crabs this year on Mayo Beach, on Indian Neck. But Barbara, urged a word of caution around that. And I think I'd like to turn it over to Barbara just to talk more. She's got so much more knowledge about it than I.
Well, when I was on the Shellfish Advisory Board, Helen and I worked on a document. This was over 10 years ago, to have a moratorium in Wellfleet Harbor based on what the Audubon was seeing and what the shellfish community was seeing. And the DMF is really wedded to these spawning surveys, which only occur on 3 days during each lunar closure. So we have 6 days a month that we do these surveys. And for the last 10 years, the numbers of horseshoe crabs in these surveys has been abysmal. It's just been either nothing or very low numbers. But the surveys are also dependent on the environmental conditions. So my husband and I go to Tavern Beach in our boat, and it could be blowing cold, and we won't see any crabs for the whole month of April and the whole month of May. So we have all these zeros, but then people are seeing crabs, on Indian Neck or Mayo Beach when the weather's nice and it's balmy, and the horseshoe crabs say, okay, this is our chance to spawn. They don't like to come up when there are waves because they get toppled over and some of them can't turn over. So a lot of what people are seeing as big numbers is just sort of anecdotal on really nice days when they have opportunities to spawn. But the regular surveys that we've been doing for 10 years have shown very, very low numbers of horseshoe crabs, even in places where there's no harvest, like the National Seashore, where I do the surveys, where you would think, okay, the crabs there have a chance because no one's harvesting them. So we've been following the DMF protocols, and they're just not listening to it. They're not believing it. The trawl surveys are kind of interesting because they're not targeted for horseshoe crabs. They're targeted for groundfish, and horseshoe crabs are just a bycatch in the trawl surveys. So they're not even targeted for that species. So if they get horseshoe crabs, they count them, but they're not going to horseshoe crab places to look. So the DMF, their protocols are kind of weird, and they're not really targeted for the species. And they're sort of believing what they want to believe. And we're not getting any traction with this, because sometimes someone will come out here and see a whole bunch of crabs on a nice day and say, oh, there's no problem here. But that's not the situation most of the spring. Most of the spring, we don't have a lot of horseshoe crabs spawning in Wellfleet Harbor. So that's, they did go along with the lunar closure idea that we proposed over 10 years ago, but there's no evidence that the full and new moons in Wellfleet are really drawing horseshoe crabs to spawn. That seems to be what's happening in Maryland and Delaware, but not north. So they're using this lunar closure thing as though that's when the horseshoe crabs spawn, but they'll spawn anytime when there's a nice day. So it's not based on the moon as far as we know in Wellfleet. I just gave you a whole lot of information. I don't know what you're going to do with that, but I just wanted to bring you up to speed with about 10 years of frustration with the DMF.
Well, part of the problem, what I read there was that, so that was 10 years ago, and the life cycle of a horseshoe crab is very long, so it takes them a long time to spawn. So what was going on 10 years ago with young of the years, I don't know what you call horseshoe crabs, but they would have just now be coming to the age at which they could spawn. Am I right about that?
Yes.
So there's a problem in terms, I mean, these trawl surveys that they're doing out in Cape Cod Bay, in the middle of the bay, you're right, it's targeted for fish, and you're going to get horseshoe crabs in there, but I'm wondering how good the science is if the growth process is so slow that you just can't keep a good solid track of how many there are in Wellfleet.
It's not good. It's not good. The DMF keeps saying, well, you're going to see an increase any year now.
Yeah, right. All right, well,
We haven't yet, so.
right, that's my understanding.
Right.
So they know that their trawl data is useless. They know it's not good science because they're not even including it in their own paperwork. And they're telling us that we need to come up with better research for them to listen to us, but our research is already better than what they're doing. So if towns can make stricter regulations than the state can, why can't we as a town, because everybody in town seems to want to protect the horseshoe crabs, why can't we make a closure for the town?
I don't think it's a town thing. It's a state fishery.
Okay.
Yeah, the state has a problem with taking people's livelihoods away. That's what that's all about.
There's like, what, one person who does this and he's got the entire rest of the Cape?
That's exactly right. And so, but that's to the Mass DMF, if that one or two parties squawks that you're taking away my living, that's how they think. I mean, it's the Division of Marine Fisheries is it started out, from the best of my recollection, as being under the Department of Commerce.
But if I want to open a pot shop, the town has something to say about it, no matter what the state says. So why can't we do the same thing as a town, saying we don't want to see this fishery happening in our town?
That's what we've been trying to say, and they're not.
Right. So we've gone to the state and said that. So what about our shellfish regulations get changed? They don't fall under our shellfish regulations, right?
Well, one of the things that I was thinking about, but careful what you wish for.
Right.
I was thinking, well, what if we required you to have a Wellfleet commercial
license, and then we don't have one.
shellfishing permit in order to fish for horseshoe crabs.
Right.
And I was also thinking for conch, because there's a lot of gear conflict with conch pots and people coming from. So that was an idea I had, but I don't know if, then I don't know whether you would create, people here who felt like, oh, geez.
That's an interesting.
They could have been doing it all along with the state permit. But anyway, that was an idea. I don't know if we'd be allowed to do that either.
Nancy, I'm not sure. I think that's part of the problem up in Heron Cove, is that once that the state is responsible for the management of certain species, and the towns way back when kind of relinquished control over certain waters and I think certain species. I also question the effectiveness of managing such a small body of water separately from the adjacent waters. I mean, Wellfleet Harbor horseshoes visit Eastham, visit Provincetown, migrate through all kinds of other areas. And I also want to point out that the DMF surveys are used because they're the only surveys that have been consistently done for decades now, the trawl surveys. And I wouldn't call the areas that the trawl surveys are performed as not horseshoe crab areas. They're just not near shore. They're not inshore horseshoe crab areas. I mean, the lobster traps I fish will tell you that horseshoe crabs and found all over the place. Same with the scallop dredge. They're found out into incredible depths too. It's just talking about, so if they're seeing the same annually, they're seeing horseshoe crabs in the same places at those same trawl survey points. It is reflecting the horseshoe crabs migration in and out of the bay and what depths they're at, during those times of years, I think for sure. I don't know if it's the best specific, obviously, to horseshoe crab. No, I think there should be better science, but I understand why DMF's using that data.
Yeah, I know they're using it, but then why do they have us for the last over 10 years doing these spawning surveys and then just ignoring them?
That, yeah.
And the other thing is, I just heard on the news today that Pfizer is developing a COVID vaccine. All these vaccines has to be tested with horseshoe crab blood byproducts. I think we could make some kind of a push to say that we're going to need these horseshoe crabs for biomedical and not,
Not for bait harvest.
Waste to use
not
them for
for
bait.
so that's another important thing that I think could be a statement. But I don't think you're going to get very far. I think there is a horseshoe crab conservation association. They've been working on this for 15 years and they're not getting anywhere.
Hmm.
And they're getting very frustrated too. And I think that they're thinking that they need a political solution and not one going through DMF. They need to
Hmm.
approach Julian Sear, Sarah Peak, and other people to reflect what the community's feeling and to bring that to the DMF because we're not really getting anywhere. But if you have questions for Mark, I mean, he's got all the data from all these surveys, all these years of stuff. And I think he would answer them. Or if you have ideas to send to Mark about how this could be approached, if it's a concern from the shellfishing community, how it can go forward through Mass Audubon and through the Horseshoe Crab Conservation Association, because the shellfishermen alone aren't going to get anywhere with this. Mass Audubon isn't going to get anywhere with this. I think it needs a broader involvement. We've tried.
So that was kind of my, just, is there, Shellfish Advisory want to weigh in on this, or do we want to talk about next steps?
Sounds like it's time for next steps.
Mm-hmm. Is that something we want to have on our agenda for next month? Because it doesn't sound like it's especially urgent right now.
Is there some kind of decision coming up by DMF or by the powers to be with horseshoe crabs, ASMFC or whoever?
No, they just made a decision.
All right, that's
mean,
true. Yeah.
I
So
think we need a strongly worded letter saying how disappointed we are that they're not listening to the communities that are affected, since we're specifically talking about how the shellfish community in the past has supported horseshoe crabs. But we could word that next month.
And I think you also could or would benefit by getting the backing of this Horseshoe Crab Conservation Association.
is that Brenda Boleyn?
Sounds good.
Well, Brenda's not the chair anymore, Dan Gibson is, but they also have a representative there from the industry that bleeds the horseshoe crabs
Right.
and the biomedical.
Mhm.
And they also have representation from the harvesters. So
Well, my understanding is the well-fleet horseshoe crabs are going for bait exclusively. Isn't that true?
right. Yes, it is.
Mhm.
So the biomedical, I mean, I support biomedical use of horseshoe crabs, but that's Pleasant Bay, and that's it right now, to my understanding.
That's it right now, but it could be expanded to Wellfleet or other places. There's nothing preventing that except that they need more bait. So, yeah, propose it for biomedical. But our crabs tend to be a little smaller, so they're not as,
The
valuable.
blood, yeah,
They don't
right.
have as much blood.
That's right. Well,
But I think aligning with the Horseshoe Crab Conservation Association would be a good step for the Shellfish Advisory Board. Because you're trying to do it on your own, they're trying to do it on their own. I think getting together and having a more of a united front would be better.
Okay.
all right, well, we could, why don't we, so on the agenda, on the agenda today, I saw horseshoe crab letter was all I saw on the agenda today. So do we want to make like writing a horseshoe crab letter of support for the next meeting to approve it, something like that, so that we can just write Mass DMF or whoever would be the people to write to now?
Yes.
I think that would be a good first step, John.
All right, well, I'll look through I'll see what I can come up with in terms of old letters I've written, and we'll say we'd like to reiterate our support. It can be a very simple letter, for pursuing limited harvest, biomedical harvest only, or, closer monitoring of horseshoe crabs in Wellfleet Harbor.
And then you should CC it to the Horseshoe Crab Conservation Association.
Oh,
Who's the chair of the SAB now?
Me.
Yeah.
I can send you the email of the
Okay.
chair of that other committee, Becca.
All right. Thank you.
Dan Gibson, I can send you his info.
Thank you. Dan Gibson. Yeah. Okay.
Barbara, do you know what surveys have been successful in other areas out of curiosity, if to provide DMF with the data they needed?
The same kind of surveys are being used in Pleasant Bay and all throughout the state. The same surveys are being used in New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. Spawning beach surveys are what's being used. They tried to develop a juvenile survey to get the little tiny horseshoe crabs in the mud flats, but they were not successful in developing a protocol to be able to get a good sense of what the recruitment is.
What the was?
Mhm. So we're all using DMF survey protocols.
Gotcha.
And that's good that everyone's using the same system, because then you can follow it over time and it's consistent from year to year.
I mean, Barbara, could you try and expand, keep doing what you're doing, but expand some of the observation days to include beautiful days to capture the spawning that you think is happening, not necessarily at the lunar closures?
Yes, I think that I've suggested that to Mass Audubon, but they're the folks that oversee all the surveys and the volunteers that do this. And for 1 year, we actually tried to do a different kind of survey and the DMF wouldn't accept it. We tried to do a survey where you just walk a stretch of beach and count the number of crabs. They wouldn't accept it because they have us putting out these transects, 15 foot by 15 foot or whatever it is, and counting the number of crabs in this little square, and then going and doing another one instead of just walking different stretches of beach. So they wouldn't accept that survey that we did. So it's kind of interesting that we have thought of different ways of doing it and doing it at different times of the month, not just on lunar closures, but they won't accept any of the data. So,
and who was that was pushing back at DMF?
It was the whole, I don't know what committee it is. I'm not sure whether it was their advisory committee, the one that Ray Kane heads, or whether it was the Atlantic States, the one that John Dwayne's been communicating with. I'm not sure, Nancy, but
Okay.
I just know when we tried to do that, we heard through the Audubon that DMF did not accept that whole year's worth of data. So that's something to ask Mark about, using different kind of surveys and not sticking to those lunar closure days, and using different beaches. Right now, we're only surveying Tavern Beach on Great Island, Indian Neck near Choppers Grant, that area by the breakwater in Wellfleet. And then they have a couple of places in Pleasant Bay and Orleans that they survey. Those are our survey areas where we have like 10 or 15 years of data.
Just out of curiosity, how come you're not at the end of Field Point?
That's not one of the survey areas.
Huh.
You know, it's just not one of the places that has a long-term data set.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just anecdotally, when I was a kid, there was millions of them out there, but that's, 40 years ago at this point.
There's none today. I'm out kayaking all the time and I don't see any.
Mhm.
Right, so send your ideas to Mark, and especially this idea about, doing a different kind of survey. I think that would be good. Even if the DMF doesn't accept it, it might give the town of Wellfleet a better idea of what's going on.
Right.
Barbara, you know somebody named Katie Drew?
No.
Okay, I actually spoke to Ray Kane last week, and this was about fish. It was about, honestly, I forget. I think it must have been about Menhaden. But he mentioned I should talk to Kate. Oh, I know what it was about, doing fish sampling as a part of a Curly report follow-up to see what they've been eating. And there was a fellow down in the Chesapeake years ago that used to cut open the stomachs and measure them, measure the spleens, male sex, male, female. And I was thinking that might be something to further, we should talk about at some point, but also Katie Drew is somebody whose name, I think she's from the ASMFC, and she was aware of that study from years ago down in Maryland.
Well, we should talk offline about this because Friends of Herring River is paying Owen Nichols to replicate the Curly survey, and he's going.
Yeah, Owen came for it. And
that's not part of it, but let's talk offline about that.
all right.
Part of the shellfish stuff.
Would it be useful at all to have someone from the Horseshoe Crab Conservation Association talk to us at another meeting and let us know what they've been up to?
I think so. I think it would be great. So I'm going to give you I'll send you Dan Gibson's email. He was a professor at WPI, Worcester Polytech, and he
Worcester Polytech, yeah.
working with horseshoe crabs for decades.
Interesting. Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
All right. Anything else about horseshoe crabs, or shall we move on?
Done.
You ready? Okay.
And maybe we invite, one more thing. Maybe we invite Audubon
Sure.
to that.
Sure. You could have a conversation.
Yeah, if we can plan it and just try, like Barbara's saying, create some unity around it and what our best next steps.
And I'm going to log off now, but I just want to, now that I know Becca's chair, Friends of Herring River has some reports that we'd like to share with the SAB sometime this winter. So if we can get on your agenda, we have new studies to report. So you can communicate with me about that, and we'll get some people to come to one of your meetings and give some reports. It's been a while.
All right. Thank you for coming tonight.
Okay. Bye. Bye, folks.
Bye.
See you, Barbara.
Bye.
See you.
The final thought about working with the horseshoe crabs with Audubon, though, is that the one meeting that I remember having gone to with the DMF, one of the guys on the board laughed at us and said that we were doing this specifically because of the birds, because we were working with Audubon to come up with the numbers of horseshoe crabs. That was, yeah.
Why? Because
Barbara Austin and I were at that meeting.
Why? Because birds eat horseshoe crab eggs? Is that what he said?
Yes, because we must be working with Audubon about the birds needing the horseshoe crab eggs, and it couldn't possibly be because the shellfishermen were actually concerned about horseshoe crabs.
Yeah, well, guess what? There's not enough horseshoe crabs for any birds to even have a snack anymore on those. So, down in Chesapeake, Cape May, New Jersey, that's a whole different story. But, you know, there's not enough eggs on the beach for
No, they were
birds.
very dismissive because we were working with Audubon.
Yeah, well, it
Mhm.
doesn't surprise me. It's a commercial fishery. I mean, that's, even though there's only 2 people doing it in Wellfleet, it makes it very secretive because they can't report their data. Anyways, we should
Yep.
probably have this offline too, but,
Yeah.
um,
Yep. We've
all right, so
discussed
next,
this over 10 years. Yes.
well, that's the problem, because 10 years ago, you know, there should be 10 years more worth of data, you know, additional data now.
Mhm.
And, you know, 10 years from now, maybe we'll get a ban in Wellfleet Harbor. You never know.
Okay, so we're moving
Next.
on to dredging incident. And Nancy was just going to give us a quick update.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who's heard and who hasn't heard, but on, oh gosh, I can't even remember what it was. It was at the end of October. The tugboat, one of the tugboats lost steering, and in an attempt, I don't want to misstate what happened. At any rate, the consequence of this was that the prop wash moved a bunch of sand on the southern edge of the grants closest to the L pier, and some clam runs and oysters were buried, and there might be some topographic changes as well to the southern end of those grants. So on the negative tide this Friday, we will go out, actually, so probably Friday at high tide, we'll go out with our GPS and put a buoy over where the points that, you know, that we have are, so that when the tide goes out, you know, more or less, I understand this, it's not an exact science, but if we see where the buoys are, then we know where the grant should end, and we can determine if there's been any loss of bottom or alteration of the terrain. We already can see that because of some sandbars and stuff. But this is the Army Corps and Cashman have requested an incident report. So I'm working with the 3 entities that were affected to kind of quantify what the potential losses and impacts were. And we really need this negative tide to be able to do that. So I hope we get good weather, and then the 3 entities will submit to the Shellfish Department, and we will bring it over to Cashman for discussion. But there's definitely shellfish lost.
Okay. Thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
And Jake doesn't seem to have made it for the direct sales.
Okay, well, I was on that too.
Okay.
And you were too, Becca, right? No.
No.
I'm trying to remember. Oh no, you weren't. It was in the basement of Town Hall. So the Wellfleet Shellfishermen's Association put forth a letter and brought it to the select board to sign, requesting that shellfishermen be allowed to sell direct to consumers. This is an idea that a lot of people have been thinking a lot about. Josh Reitzma from the county and I have been, trying to think of creative ways that we could help make this happen. But it is going to be very, very, very difficult. And it's not that we're not going to follow that lead. It's definitely going to be followed. But at this brainstorming meeting, we came up with another idea, which would be to try. So my discussions with the DMF. So I spoke with Jeff Kennedy at length, and I spoke with Eric Hickey at length, who is with the food sanitation program at the Department of Public Health. And both are very, very interested in working with us as long as we can try and be creative and think outside of the box, but within the structure of the regulations. So we kind of looked at farmers markets as a potential. And we thought, what if we did, for example, like every Saturday on the pier, we had oyster harvesters selling. They would have to run them through a dealer. And perhaps we could work with somebody local. And maybe the dealer would be able to work at cost or something. You know, these are all details to be figured out. But they would be able to sell direct, and they could do all their own outreach and social media and get everybody that they could have as a client to come by and sell directly from a cooler, like let's say on the back of a truck. And maybe there's some protocols in place, like the consumers also need to have coolers with ice in the back of their vehicles and COVID protocols. But this would be something that would allow people to sell direct within the regulations as if it was at a farmer's market. And part of the letter, part of the regulations that Wellfleet Shellfishmen's Association came up with is that it would be like 1,000 pieces a week would be the limit that any one shellfishman could sell direct. So in that way, it's not really impeding or influencing any relationships with dealers or any reliance that dealers have on shellfishermen, because you're really only talking about 1,000 pieces of product. But and so maybe we would do something like that kind of a limit. But it's in its infancy, and we are, you know, I'm making outreach to try and see how I can broker this for the town. And so that's kind of a work in progress, but I think it would be fabulous, you know, if we've seen anything over the past 10 months, we've seen that people on Cape Cod are really interested in supporting local fisheries. And there's been a whole, you know, buy fresh, buy local movement right from boats. And people just really embrace it. And if we can figure out a way to kind of work within the regs and transfer that support to our shell fishermen, then I feel like we'd be doing a darn good job.
So you
I
referred,
think we would get, and just one last thing. So DMF has said that they would come with, you know, all the power of their communication engine and all their seafood promotion and marketing program. They can throw behind it. And the way I was kind of thinking about it is like, here it can go viral in the town and on the Lower Cape, but then, you know, it could expand beyond. And we can certainly use all the mechanisms that we have for communication. But if you look at something like the Oyster Fest, which attracts, you know, 20,000 people to town, I do see that there's a potential over the long term, you know, to really have this be something that could spread beyond
come to the
boundaries.
Saturday markets.
Huh?
Come to the Saturday shellfish markets.
Yes. You know, I can see a person from Boston driving down, you know, not
On a nice
every
day.
week, but, you know, it'd be like a treat, and we could do it hopefully around the holidays and stuff.
So you referred to oysters. Would that also be open to cohogs and maybe the people who are already selling scallops at farmers markets?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I think we were really thinking about Wellfleet town. It would be kind of a town sponsored event. We would provide the oversight in order for DMF and DPH to feel comfortable.
So as long as you're a Wellfleet fisherman, you could.
Yeah, so it would be Wellfleet based, and it would be Wellfleet shellfish species. So I
Great.
wouldn't think about, we don't really land any sea scallops in Wellfleet.
Okay.
We do land sea clams, so maybe that would become an
Oh,
option.
that'd be great.
You know, we were really looking at it from there's some really small operations that need help right now.
That's a great idea. Is there anything that we as our board can help with?
Who at DMF are you talking to, Nancy?
Jeff Kennedy,
Jeff Kennedy?
he's kind of the new Mike Hickey.
Okay.
He's in charge of the Shellfish program.
Would a letter from us help, or should we just stay quiet?
Oh, I don't think, you know, I think right now it's really into the logistics of it.
Okay.
So, but, you know, let me dive in a little deeper than I have so far, and then I can always come back and I can certainly email you to say, you know, I'd like to request this as an agenda item because I'm running up against this or that, and I'd love your support. I mean, you could certainly, you know, put together a letter of support, but I really think DMF and DPH want to help.
Okay.
It's just they, you know, changing the regulations right now, the regulations say, and it's that they're federal regs that are adopted by the state of Mass, say that all shellfish has to be sold to a primary dealer. It's not just for interstate commerce, it's for everything. So the FDA regulates interstate commerce, but the way that the Mass regs are written is you have to sell to a dealer. So this is a way for us to, you know, work through a dealer, but have people sell individually. And that's how it works at farmers markets. And I think we can make it work.
That's a good idea.
Hey, Nance, who was copied on that letter? Did we have any local politicians get copied on that?
I think so. Yeah, I think that they are trying to kind of activate it through the, yeah, you have to, because it would be a, you know, they sent it to Governor Baker, and then they copied Sarah Peak and Julian Sear and obviously DPH and DMF. I can forward you the letter if you'd like.
No, I got a copy of the letter. Courtney sent the letter out to us.
Oh, okay. To Shellfish Advisory Board?
I think so. I know I got a copy of it.
I got it too, so I think
So
so.
it must have been the Shellfish Advisory Board. No, I'm just
Zach,
thinking,
did you?
I'm just thinking out loud with, you know, Baker's office is going to call the local politician and say, what do you think about this? Is it worth, you know, getting to them and having the conversation about how it affects X amount of people in Wellfleet that are associated with the shellfishing community, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to go off a tangent here, but you know, I sold to local governments, and every time I went to sell to a local government, I always talked about the number of votes in my back pocket. So if you got a plant in Poughkeepsie, which IBM did, you had 40,000 employees, you had 80,000 votes, you know, with the spouse and all that stuff. You know, you always want to put a little undue pressure on these people on how important it is to us.
Mm-hmm.
And Wellfleet is 3,500 people, whatever it is. You know, let's say 2,500 of those are tied to the shellfishing community. 2,500 are voting members of society, you know, that type of thing. I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but seems that, you know, between Barbara's conversation and this one, it seems that nothing's getting done above us that we need.
Well, if this is meant to be a kind of like an assist with because of the virus that's going around right now, because people need to start selling product, that's good, number one. And number two, if we could get a Saturday shellfishing market at the pier, other than the traffic, I would think about it, the summertime might be a problem, but
it would only happen outside of Vibrio season.
Outside of Vibrio season, all right.
So it would happen, let's say, you know, till April 30th or something.
All right, well, you know something? that sounds like a winning situation there, because especially just because of the amount of people that's still been coming down off season here has been incredible right now. I mean, if it was going on right now, every weekend would be sold out down there, you know?
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
So it's probably a good idea. And if somebody feels strongly about it here, why doesn't somebody else write a letter about that to indicate our support for that?
There's nothing that says you can't do that.
Yeah.
There's no regulations to make or change, or it's
Right.
it's
It's just organization, I think.
Okay, well, it sounds like if, you know, you need to, first of all, you need to get a dealer that's willing to do it, that wants to do it, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we should get the word out.
I wonder if we shouldn't write a letter, though, of support, supporting the stance of the select board, supporting the stance of the Wellfleet Shellfish Association, in finding a way that, you know, propelling DMF to find a way for grant holders, boat owners, and other wild harvesters to sell direct in non-February seasons, you know? I think it's a good idea. The rest of the commercial fisheries has been opened up. There's not been any real major fallout from it. A lot of people, it's just too much work. I don't sell direct to the public. It's a whole different line. I think it should be available for people if it's not dangerous. And I think during the, you know, non-February months, it's really not that dangerous, you know?
Just, you know, that DMF and DPH would beg to differ. You know, they've been very clear with me. I'm not saying, believe me, I'm not saying you shouldn't do this. I think that, you know, pushing for something is a good idea. But shellfish get eaten raw, and lobsters and scallops do not really. And they have plenty of other, you know, you read it on a menu about being careful about eating raw shellfish. You know, so it's not just Vibrio that they're concerned about.
Well, I think that, you know, there's enough, you know, it's keeping the shellfish cold. There's ways to do that successfully. Ice machines, I mean, there's coolers, you know, Nancy mentioned that before, the idea of having a cooler, you know, you gotta have, there's certain things you have to have or have to be provided. It could work if people wanted to make it work, I believe.
Yes, and that's a great comment. And the other thing that they're very concerned about is traceability. And that's why they need the dealers for reporting purposes and for traceability.
Right. And generally our dealers are it's a safe business out here. You know, not very many people on the whole get sick from shellfish and wellfleet unless they've been sitting on somebody's dashboard for 5 hours.
I don't understand the traceability element, as long as it's not being sold in wholesale amounts to, you know, if it's straight retail amounts, I mean, it's the same traceability that any wholesaler has. I don't get that though.
So who's going to do the reporting?
What's that?
Then you're going to put the reporting on the shellfisherman?
Same as, I mean, I have my boat retail license. You have to enter SAFES. You have to report your sales. Yep. I mean, it's a pain in the butt, and let anyone who wants to do it. I mean, I'm sure Zach will tell you. Anyone who wants to do it, have at it.
It's a lot. It sounds like it would be like an oyster fest every weekend. You know,
What is that paperwork like? I've never seen that paperwork.
That's right.
I would just sort of assuming it would be on a trip report, like 900 pieces sold at farmer's market.
Well, if you go, the harvester would have to do their safest report, and then it goes to the harvester and they do their logging in and out, their paper logging, and then in addition they do their safest reporting there, their dealer reporting, and then it would go back. So then the transport back to the market, you'd have to get it in a refrigerated vehicle to the market. As far as I know, you're not allowed to, like a fisherman couldn't come to my processing facility and with a cooler and take his shellfish back. You have to transport it in a truck, and then for the Wellfleet Board of Health would require you to have a plan. time temperature control plan basically for once it gets to the market, comes out of the truck into your cooler. Although it's off season, so I don't know. The Board of Health would make up the rules for that, really. I mean, the rest of the thing is just like any harvester dealer transaction. And then, let me see. So the dealer becomes the retailer, so they would have to have, so what happens is I give them my dealer tag, and then they have to take that dealer tag, and when they sell the last bag of oysters or however they're portioning their oysters, they'd have to write the date on the back of that tag, the last oyster sold, and keep that for 90 days.
I feel like EMF could do something with like a 3-hour window, 3 hours of harvest,
Yeah, maybe you wouldn't need ice or.
a harvest retail license for 3 hours after harvest.
Right.
Simple. And then they just do a dealer safest report, and then I mean, I really don't understand DMS position, because then you're always at risk with your dealer license, because those guys are like on you for your reporting,
Right.
more than the harvester say.
Sure.
I don't know. I think it's something that the town, this board could look at supporting.
Mhm.
Yeah, it would be nice if DMF is willing to alter or make an exception to their regulations,
Doesn't the Food and Drug Administration have something to do with that?
Well, that's FPP. It's like they're under FDA.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just, being an idiot with these matters. I have no idea what they're going to have to say, but are they behind it as much as DMF is?
I don't know.
Well, it sounds worthy of exploring. I'm sure people would be interested in partaking of it if they could. And if there's a way that local shellfishermen could benefit from it
Yeah.
financially, maybe there's a way that it could work out where you could have alternating, I don't know, but there's got to be a way to do it, literally out of the back of a truck, or you set up something on the pier.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like from what Nancy said that DMF and food protection are into it, but within their existing regs. So at least they're supportive of it. Also, you'll get a little pushback from dealers.
Yep.
Okay.
Because they're, I know of some other similar programs, and I get calls from other dealers saying, why are we going through all this when these guys are just allowed to sell it direct? Like, why am I paying all the money and all the effort and all the inspections and regulations on us, and all of a sudden these guys can just sell direct? So personally, I'm not really in that boat, but I've gotten a couple calls about that. But that's just, I don't know. I mean, it seems like a cool grassroots thing to do, and especially
if there's a way it could be swung, so it's like the beginning of November right now. I mean,
yeah, it is. I mean, but then when you circumvent the system that's already set up, the dealer looks at it and is like, "Whoa, okay, well, what am I doing all this for?"
When Oysterfest is done, is there a specific dealer everything goes through, or is it whoever's?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a specific, they bid it out. So, I mean, some of the ideas, I don't have my notes right here, but some of the ideas I think were that either people could use the dealers that they usually use, or that we would have one dealer that would do everything. Like Zach was saying, it's kind of like a mini Oyster Fest every Saturday, but you're not shucking them. You're just selling them to go.
sounds like another ancillary market for little igloo coolers too.
Yep.
I mean, it might be worth gauging. I mean, maybe the WSA already knows how many people are really interested in doing this because, you know, like Damien said, it is a little bit of work to, it's a whole other thing when you start selling retail.
Well, would it be a good idea to put Saturday Shellfish Market on an agenda item and see who shows up at our meeting?
That
Be
might
it
be a
Zoom
good-
or other one, you know,
Should-
I mean,
Should we reach out to the Shellfish Association and see if they'd like to officially talk to us about it? Because we'd like to support them, it sounds like, if this is something that they want to spearhead, which is, seems to be sort of what's happened.
is that where this is coming from? The Wealthy Shellfish Association?
Nancy, was that how it came up? Uh-oh.
I see her, well, I see her name there.
Wellfleet Shellfishermen's Association is pushing forward the change in regulations, and the town is going to look at creating the mini Oyster Fest on Saturdays.
The town, when you say the town, the select board has been made aware of this? Is that right?
Let me just think. No, we haven't bumped it up to the select board yet because we still have to figure out all the logistics so that we go to them with a plan. But right now we're looking at doing like, I guess, me working with Hillary to like, I think Zach was saying the board of health would have to come up with what the regs are and if we need temporary food service permits. So all the logistics still needs to be, logistics still need to be worked out. You know, we're gonna work with the harbor masters to determine which part of the pier would be used. I have to go to DMF and DPH just to run the ideas by them and then come up with like what the protocols are. So, you know, there's a lot of work still to do. And then, yes, of course, it would be presented to the select board for approval. And launching.
All right, well, it sounds premature right now to be talking about it here.
So should we invite somebody to come and talk? And it could be you, Nancy, next meeting. And then once things are worked out a bit more, we should do a letter to the town supporting it. Because it sounds like we're all interested in supporting this idea.
Yeah, I mean, and there's two parallel tracks, right? There's the one that's going, you know, there's the Governor Baker letter about changing the regs. And then there is, that went from the select board. And then there is the, you know, the market opportunity. So I would hope that by the next meeting, I'd have more information to share. We just had the preliminary meeting, I think last Monday. There were 6 of us and we kind of talked about it. And now there's some significant work to be done.
Okay, so then the next agenda we write up should have, so please update us and we'll decide if we need to write a letter at that point.
Sure.
Seem
All
reasonable?
right, so
Everybody?
how about let's just, on the next Shellfish Advisory Board agenda, how about just update Saturday shellfishing market?
Okay.
Next,
All right, are we ready to hit the review of the fiscal year or are we
No,
saving that
so-
for next?
The next, but the next thing was the budget, but I kind of jumped the gun and I was on the schedule of what the previous town administrator had done. And so I just got my budget ready and submitted it on November 2nd. But it turns out that the town administrator just held today the first budget meeting. So she hasn't even, with department heads. So she hasn't had a chance. She's been working to kind of launch the budget process for all the different town departments. And so I haven't had a chance to meet with her on it. So I don't want to present something that I haven't met with her on. As soon as I, you know, get her blessing on it, then I'll come and present it back to you. So I think we should put it on the December meeting agenda, please.
Okay,
But I don't want to, you know, present you with something that she hasn't even reviewed yet. I mean, she got it, but you know what I
is
mean.
there anything that you need to present to us so that we can support you in your request for?
I guess, the first thing is that I'm going to take direction from her. We're in uncertain times. And, I just want to make sure that, I'd like to just get some guidance first. I don't want to be, my budget is basically level funded, except for I did add back in the part-time recreational person.
Sounds like we really need them.
Yeah. And it would only be, for the, it would basically be like June, I think it's mid-May through September 30th, just to really help during the summer months. So it's a part-time seasonal. It was approved last year. But then of course we took it out because by the time you have to have your budgets approved by the town's operating budget, it has to be approved at town meeting. And since town meeting happened on September 12th, there was no reason for me to include that for a 2-week job. So we took it out. And so, in my eyes, the budget is level funded except for the normal increases in, salaries that are through the union contracts. And then I did add that $8,000 back in. Otherwise, I just kept it the same. I do have a sign project that I'm working on, which, we laminate paper signs and hang them out. And it just, I hate the fact that like little bits of plastic are escaping. So I'm coming out with a plan to do metal signs, and that way they would last longer and they would not be detrimental to the environment. But I'm not 100% sure that I have to add that into my budget. I might be able to ask for a budget transfer to cover that. And I might be able to do it this fiscal year or spread it out between 2 fiscal years. So I'm new at municipal budgeting. So I'm trying to learn the ropes and figure out how to just do a better job with our signage so that it's not little tiny bits of plastic flicking through the rain environment.
Sounds good.
All right.
So, do you want to? Are we allowed to talk about the matching funds you got?
Yeah, actually, hold on one second.
Okay.
I just want to go get my notes. Hold on.
Is there anything else we need to talk about tonight, or are we pretty much done after this?
That's the
Hi,
next
I'm back.
one.
I apologize that my screen's off. I injured my back and I had a hard day today, so I had to be laying down, which is not conducive for having a camera on you. Okay, so we happily, and I think I copied you on this on Friday, we received the $10,000 in matching funds from the county as part of the National Sea grant that they got to help with COVID relief. So all town meeting and you all and the select board supported the Shellfish department in requesting to use up to $10,000 of the revolving fund for propagation funds to put towards COVID relief. And so we put that in our proposal to the county and they matched it for $10,000. Their entire pot of money was 15. So I'm really impressed and grateful that they saw fit to award $10,000 to the town of Wellfleet. So the program that I'd like to, and so basically what we are saying is that we are going to offer this for the farmers who have been struggling. They need the real estate back. They haven't been able to make the sales. They've got seed that's growing. They're going to need that space. They're not going to want to pit adult oysters because they don't do well in the pits. So we are proposing to buy oysters at 45 cents. Now, I haven't quite structured how we're going to do this so that we can be fair across the board, but that's what we'll work on next, is creating how the program will be implemented so that it's fair and that we can help as many different people as possible. So it'll probably be a limited amount of oysters that you'd be able to sell. But we were thinking that, if we bought 1,000 oysters, we're doing the calculations. We could probably do help 44 farmers if we bought 1,000 oysters from each, which is not a lot, but I don't know if there's 44 people who need the assistance. You know, some people, it seems, were doing okay, and others, you know, during grant inspections were saying they hadn't sold an oyster yet this summer. So we'll just try and figure out a fair and equitable way to implement the program. But we're very pleased to be able to do that for the people who are struggling here, because it's going to be a tough winter. And I guess, you know, if you do think that you have something you'd want to, you know, ideas that you'd want to give us, then maybe we should put it on as an agenda item.
That's great.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay, and then the last thing that I just wanted to bring up, this is just putting a bug in your ear for next year. It's too late this year, but we went online with our Shellfish permit sales, not the commercial, because that happened before COVID, but then we moved to a online sales platform, and it worked really, really well. But the credit card fees are 3% of the sales. So in order that that doesn't start to deteriorate or go into the town's revenue, I'd probably ask you guys to increase permit fees by like $5 a permit next year, just so that we can continue doing the online credit card. It's so much more convenient for just about everybody. And the data that gets entered is more correct because the people are doing it themselves. So I've had very little like misspellings and in terms of like contact information for email addresses and things, because it's not somebody else reading somebody else's handwriting. So it's been really great. And I think I'd like to continue that. But, you know, I don't want it to come out of the town's coffers. I'll probably have to ask, that's probably something that I'm going to have to add into my budget, which I haven't yet, to cover the fees this year. But so there's another reason why I need to go look at my budget again, because I wasn't aware of this until the other day. Suzanne is covering what, you know, to date, which is great from the beach department, because they sell, you know, they kind of do all the issuing in the summer. But I'll want to be thinking ahead to next year, making sure that I'm taking care of my own department with those fees. Unfortunately, I didn't realize this before we talked about it at the last meeting when you didn't want to raise the fees.
Right.
Sorry.
Nancy, I got another question about the department budget. Do you guys have the coach conversation secured? I've heard that like clamshell is hard to come by. Is that an issue in the upcoming year?
It's very true, but we have an amazing relationship with Atlantic Capes, and I think this was our 3rd year with them, and I have absolutely no indication that they couldn't fill our order. We've budgeted $10,000 for 10 loads, which is what we've done for the past, ever since I've been on board. So I you know, so far so good. And there's also been people locally that have offered, but I haven't heard anything concrete. And I don't know that they could meet the, you know, like a load is, you know, they fill a 70-yard can. So it's a lot. It's a lot of sea clam shell in one delivery. But we're always open. We're always open to ideas, because we have to pay for trucking, not the shells.
All right. Shall we move on to scheduling next meeting?
Sounds good.
Anyone have a tide chart on hand?
I do. Oh, Ross, by the way, I texted Ross and he said that he was traveling to Maine and wasn't able to find a good space to be able to check in. So he apologizes.
Okay.
Let me grab my calendar.
Oh, yeah.
So when in December looks good?
To December 7th is a Monday.
High tides at 4:21.
I will have no childcare that day. So it's not good at all.
Tuesday, the 8th.
I have a meeting that day in the morning, but would the 9th work? The tide is at like noon?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
That was good for me.
If we can be done by 8, I think I'm okay with that.
So you're
So
talking
6
about December 9th at what time?
6:30 like tonight?
That's good by me.
You know,
Okay. Aim to be done by 8 like we are tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
Wednesday, we said December 8th,
The 9th.
6th, December 9th, thank
Wednesday
you,
is the 9th at 6:30.
at 6:30. I'm gonna send it around
Okay.
at 6:30 PM.
got it.
Next SAB meeting Wednesday, December 9th, 6:30 PM. Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
guys. Good
Thank you.
discussions. Take
Yeah.
care.
All right. So we're adjourned.
okay, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
All right.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good night.
Bye.